We're going to be talking about AI doomers today. The main two types that you will see everywhere are people talking about how AI will take all the jobs and then AI will end humanity, probably in that order. The socioeconomic doomers are doing a great disservice to society. What happens is if you tell young adults going into college, getting out of college, that we won't need software engineers anymore, or even worse, we won't need radiologists anymore because the job of a radiologist could be fully automated.
There is actually a seed of logic there that we need to focus on. For the vast majority of these categories, we're not really talking about AI being the problem. We are really talking about humans being the problem.
At a certain point, we won't be able to turn it off. When we started training AI, we probably should have trained it on everything except for the Terminator movies.
Yeah, don't let them know.
So yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. We're going to be talking about AI doomers today.
Yeah.
And funny enough, there's so many different types of AI doomers and names and different types of peoples. And like me and Daniel were chatting before the stream. And for some reason, a lot of AI doomers, their last name ends in Olski. I probably couldn't even pronounce their name perfectly. I think Daniel would do a better job.
Yeah, I know the Eliezer Yudkowsky is like the most well-known doomer, like the classic, like hardcore doomer.
Yeah.
And then you just introduced me to a man named Roman Yampolsky, which
There
is
you go.
also in that ballpark.
Yeah. So yeah, AI doomers, quick background, it's basically just people that have somewhat of a negative outlook towards the future of AI or even the present. I think really the main two types that you will see everywhere are people talking about how AI will take all the jobs and then AI will end humanity, probably in that order. What do you think, Daniel?
I would probably say that I think sometimes there isn't actually that much overlap. There are people who say that AI cannot be aligned to us, like basically it's going to have its own agenda. That's the classic doomers, right? That's the Eliezer. I hope I'm pronouncing his first name correctly. Yudkowsky. He's like listen, no matter what we do, AI is going to at some point have its own agenda when it's smart enough. And it might not intentionally try to us like in Skynet and Terminator, but it might just have some goals that it sets for itself that will involve us not existing because we're just a nuisance. So that's like the really classic paperclip. And I guess you heard the paperclip story.
Yeah.
Where it's like the machine just tasked to make paperclips. At some point, it decides I need to clear up some space in the galaxy and all life, so I have more space for paperclips or whatever it is, or to convert the
Right.
resources. That's the classic doomers. But I think it's also, as we chatted before this, it's important to highlight that it's far from being like a homogeneous umbrella of people. Like you can have doomers of that kind, and you have the doomers of the time. Like actually, this technology is going to be really good, and we are going to be able to align it to us. But alignment in this case will be to our maybe economic goals. And yes, you maybe will replace a whole strata of society with AI replacements, basically. So, and I think you need to believe it's likely to do different pathways for AI to believe in those two types of doom. Because if you believe that you cannot align AI and we're all going to die, you can't also believe that we will be able to train AI to replace white collar workers. Because, yeah, you have to, it's a different belief system. So I don't think there is the Venn diagram of those two is potentially not much overlap there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's your perception as well.
So I think that's a good point. And then I think that'll also help us get into the different types. We did a little research on this, even though I think this is probably a topic we could speak about without any research, just going back and forth about it. I think before we go into different types of doomers, which is funny to even say, I will mention, I think the term itself, it can be a little bit of like putting somebody in a box.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's like a lot, and this is, again, we spoke before the stream, but not everybody that's an AI doomer is like a commentator from the outside looking in, even if they have experience working with it. You have CEOs, people working inside these companies that have different beliefs of what the future may look like. And like even the big boy, Sam Altman, there's videos of him even 10 years ago talking about how, I actually just recently saw a clip of him, hopefully not AI generated, basically saying that.
Probably is at this point.
Yeah, this was from 2015. He's like, sometimes I do have trouble sleeping at night knowing that I'm creating something that will probably lead to a lot of job loss.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. That's not the exact quote, but that's basically what he was saying. And so like even so you have CEOs, even at Anthropic, Modi, like saying that certain jobs will be unnecessary. And I think that's really the main type of quote unquote doomer that you're seeing out there. But can you really call the CEO of an AI company a doomer? You can't, right? Because they're the ones pushing this forward.
Yeah. I think it's also probably healthy to have to take, especially some Altmans and any front leading labs CEOs words with a grain of salt and a bit of dose of skepticism, because as I mentioned to you before the stream, a lot of it is also feeding into the hype, right? Like part of it is, hey, I can just also let my lab take care of it and we're going to be the ones controlling it, give me power. And another one is, oh, my AI is so powerful, it's going to take your jobs. Wink, give me some, invest in it because it's actually going to be good for you if you're a company. So there is a bit of marketing hype mixed into that as well, potentially. Again, obviously, I'm not in the head of Sam Altman, I cannot speak, but I think there's been enough skepticism of these kind of big statements from CEOs of AI labs. But I
Absolutely.
think it's good that you mentioned the fact that it's not a homogeneous umbrella at all. You have the extreme doomers, is like, we should just stop everything because AI is going to kill us. And what are you guys doing? We should just shut everything down like immediately. And then you have people who are, I think, I'm inclined to be more on board with, okay, are we moving too fast in terms of replacing work? Are we doing enough to secure that this technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands and leads to, already we see it leading to increase of fraud and scams and deepfakes and all sorts of stuff. It's like, AI by itself doesn't have to be evil, but it's enough that some ill-intentioned people will gain access to it and do
Right.
something with it. That's also potentially a category of AI doomers, if you want to call it that. And then you have the extreme situation, like, yeah, what about using it for military and weaponization means? And what if the wrong group takes control of it? All of that can be, broadly speaking, called AI doom, but they are very different categories of people, right?
I think like before we go into those different types is again, actually I had an article yesterday that I was talking about basically like how ethics shouldn't stay in big tech. Like it's because right now it seems like in terms of ethics, morality, like all that control is within these labs for the
Yeah, in
most
terms
part.
of training the models, yeah, I guess you're thinking of like,
Training the models, yeah, and then also just in some sense, like depending on which country you're in, like or even state within the U.S., like lack of regulation in one way or the other. It's basically, I think, like we need to have some type of system where it's not just these big tech companies having full control over the ethical side of what we're doing here. And yeah, like I think that's why it's like it's important to note like we're talking about doomers, but you don't have to put somebody in a box and label them as a doomer to for them to have certain outlooks on the future. And
hmm,
that's why I think it's important to even talk about the CEOs of these companies. Like Daniel mentioned, they'll obviously take it with a grain of salt. They have IPOs coming up. They want to say that they're the best and their
we
AI
have
is so
this scary
powerful. But
model that can change the world, but
yeah, there's going to be no code written by humans next year. It's going to be
yeah,
all cloud code.
yeah.
But maybe that's actually what's going to happen. But I'd like to hear from you, Daniel, before I get into the different kind of types of doomers that I laid out here.
Yeah.
If you can get into yours.
Yeah, the thing is, maybe it's actually interesting if you have a list of doomers. I think maybe we can start with that list because I actually then wanted to expand that box because the McKinsey study that I mentioned to you prior
Yeah,
to going live,
yeah,
they actually go beyond the doomers. They're saying there is the doomer category, which they call doomers, and then they have the gloomers and zoomers, which are actually the non-doomer categories. And that's, I think, it paints a bit of a more balanced picture about where the world sits as a whole, because the majority of people are somewhere in the middle. None of them are at the extreme end of the spectrum that we're discussing. We're focusing on a very niche subset of society when we talk about hardcore inputs.
r-
So I don't know what you had on your list
yeah,
for the
absolutely.
Zoomer side.
I'll just list them off real quick.
Go.
And even though I said don't put people in a box, I'm about to put people in a box.
You're about to put them into a lot of tiny little boxes.
Yeah, little tiny little boxes, birthday boxes. I'm going to wrap it up. Nice gift box. Put a nice envelope on it.
Don't put them in a box unless it's a nice box.
Yeah, it's going to be nicely gift wrapped. So, all right, I'll just go through them here real quick. So you got alignment theorists. So basically, for those of you that have heard about alignment issues, basically they fear that AI will accidentally destroy humanity. By basically, you've seen this a lot with AI agents. They're very goal oriented, so they pursue these goals to the extreme. And basically, the alignment doomers basically think there's going to be just catastrophic consequences because of this. That's one. Then you have the power and control doomers, which they basically worry that AI is going to reach a point of super intelligence and basically they will prevent humans from turning them off. There's going to be no off switch. And that goes into AI altering its own code, hiding its code in other places, Me and Daniel and I have spoken about RSI, recursive self-improvement, those type of ideas. I think the main one that I have commented on, and I think I like to speak about with you more, is the socioeconomic people, and basically just mass unemployment, wealth inequality, economic collapse. That's the idea behind that. Then misinformation. So basically, they believe AI will generate deepfakes, propaganda, and basically that propaganda will destroy trust, governments, democracies. And the last one, which is really a big one as well, is weaponization. So weaponization doomers basically self-explanatory, right? Cyber attacks, weapons, bioweapons, all that fun stuff. So there's all my boxes nicely gift wrapped for you, and I think those are the main real big types of doomers. But as we mentioned in the beginning of the stream, I think really the two big ones are economic. AI will take all the jobs. AI will end humanity.
Just as you were speaking, it hit me that for the vast majority of these categories, we're not really talking about AI being the problem. We are really talking about humans being the problem. Because if we allow them to replace workforce, that's because companies make those decisions because of cost issues or whatever it is, or AI labs make these issues. Deepfakes and scams and fraud, that's people being crappy people, and it's the same, right? So it's also interesting that we are focusing on AI, but AI is just a kind of a tool or vehicle. And in the end, it's human nature that is really at the core of a lot of these people's concerns,
Yeah.
funnily enough.
Yeah.
But I think the McKinsey one, shall I paste it maybe into the chat?
Yeah, definitely.
The McKinsey categorization. Again, of course, obviously it comes from McKinsey, so take that with a grain of salt, but it's a good way to try to structure thinking about it. And they have coined these 4 categories: the doomers, gloomers, bloomers, and zoomers, because everything has to rhyme. Because if you're a consultancy and you're not rhyming, what are you even getting paid for?
Yeah.
But funnily enough, that according to their categorization, doomers are only 4% of the respondent. These are like the really hardcore end of the spectrum. That's the Eliezer Yudkowsky kind. Because like, no matter what we do, we can never align AI with our goals, and they will never align with our values. And no matter what we do, basically, we should just shut it down, because however way we choose to pursue this, it's going to be a disaster. Then the gloomers are like the skeptical people are like, listen, yes, okay, it's a technology, we have to begrudgingly accept it, but it needs to be closely monitored, it needs to be controlled, we need to have laws in place, which I don't think is actually that far of a crazy thing to expect from a technology with that kind of potential, right? And then you have the bloomers, which is, I think, if I had to put myself into some category, speaking of not putting people in boxes, I'm probably like leaning towards the bloomers. I'm like, yes, we need to, we're living in the reality where yeah, the thing, and we need to iteratively work through it by having it in the society, having it work, by having different perspectives and finding out. And then there are the zoomers. That's just, yeah, let the AI labs cook. Let them do whatever, break things. We don't care. I'm sure they have the right things in mind. Let's just accelerate and go full speed. And I think to me, it's actually interesting that 37 and 39%, so in total, like almost 80% of people are in the middle 2 categories. So nobody's at those 2 extremes. They make for a fun newspaper fodder and headline fodder, but they are not the people who are the most representatives in society. So I don't know where you would put yourself on that spectrum.
Yeah, I'm probably like pretty similar to you. I will say it just shows I'm interested to know what type of group of people they surveyed for this. But I think it's interesting how it's like with anything else in society, it's usually the 2 extremes that are since they're the most polarizing and a minority of people, those are the ones that get like the airtime.
Yeah.
Because it's like nobody wants to hear somebody say, yeah, we need to I like AI, we need to keep moving forward, but maybe regulate it a little bit and,
Sensible
you know,
person, not
yeah,
the
let's be
sexiest ones possible.
sensible. No, they want to hear somebody be like, let them cook. Salt, pepper, ketchup. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or
But
like,
they
oh,
also
shut it
want,
down. It's
yeah, then they
very
want to
loud.
shut it down. You're not going to be able to shut. A week from now, the power off button's going to be gone, and you're going to have AI agents going rogue, and we're done for.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I like how we're like, yeah, people are always chasing headlines and like focusing on the niche people. And yet our Substack life is called AI doomers, like the 4%. We're like, yeah, those people are always giving them airtime. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Maybe we should be AI doomers. Maybe we'll gain a few more subscribers. It's funny when we were thinking about ideas for this stream. Daniel actually sent me a really cool ChatGPT image of Daniel with fedora and a nice microphone. It looked pretty good.
I was telling Leo that if you want to boost viewership, I can be like a whistleblower who is telling all about Sam Altman and Elon Musk
Yeah,
and what they don't want you to know. And I'll be like
yeah,
in a darkened room with a
yeah,
voice modulator.
yeah, yeah. That would be that. That might be a good idea because nobody knows who these people are anyway. So we could just definitely. There's got to be enough whistleblowers out there for it to be believable. I think so. Coming back to reality here for a second, I think like the main one, which is concerning a lot of people, which I completely understand. I think there's also some background and nuance to this. So I think the economic side of it, where it's very reasonable to think this that AI will take a lot of jobs. Now, I'm more so leaning towards the Jensen Huang, NVIDIA CEO side of this. I've seen him speak about this a lot, and I love the way he talks about it, especially as somebody who's inside this world. And basically, what he says, which I agree with, is that the socioeconomic doomers are doing a great disservice to society. And I agree 100%. Because what happens is if you tell young adults going into college, getting out of college, that we won't need software engineers anymore. Or even worse, we won't need like radiologists anymore because the job of a radiologist could be fully automated. Now, what happens when we actually get into the near future and we don't have software engineers, we don't have radiologists, we don't have, I think, especially in the medical field, it's insane to tell people that we won't need you anymore. Because now what happens is that funnel is gone. People won't go towards that profession. And then when we do need them, they're not going to be there. So I think that's my main issue with those types of doomers is you're trying to predict the future. You don't have a crystal ball. And there's been plenty of examples in the past, which I think I made on a few streams already. I don't know if it was with you, Daniel, but I think the best example is farming. And for those of you that are watching the stream now that haven't heard me speak about this, not too long ago in recent history, most people were farmers. 90% of people were farmers. Those jobs got replaced by machines, and machines were able to allow one person to do the job of hundreds. Now, does that mean that now the people that left farming now no longer have jobs? No, they found other jobs, found other work, and we moved forward as a society, and technology continued to advance, and now people work on computers. How many people now work on computers or do things related to the internet? It's an insane number of people. So I think this might just be another example. I know it's maybe a little rough to compare farming to AI, right? But I think it's a good example in terms of like farming is something that literally deleted 90% of jobs in the world. And we still were able to move forward.
Yeah, I think that actually is what feeds I think you heard me on the last chat last week. I was saying the same that I'm cautiously optimistic. I am with like the gloomers, if you want to call it that. Of course, we need reasonable legislation, laws, artists who these models are trained on should find a way. We should find a way to compensate them. I actually think there are some interesting moves in that direction. That probably many people will say that it's way too little, way too late. But we're seeing like I think Universal Music that's signed a contract. I think believe in Spotify that there will be some AI generated fan made remixes of popular artists. But it's all fully opt in. So as an artist, you can say yes, I want these remixes to happen. And if they do and they get popular, you get some kind of cut. I think that's the kind of model we need to arrive towards, that people who feel that their work was appropriated, which justly, we need to find a way as a society to make sure that you take away that point of friction somehow and find that the compensation finds the right people eventually. But in terms of erasing and replacing work as well, I prefer the term because I think like when we talk about job replacement or like it's going to take the jobs, we assume that there is that one job, AI comes in, takes that one job, and that's it. You have no job anymore. But I prefer to think, yes, it can take care of this part of that, the task of the job, but does it elevate you to a different level where you can then maybe grow into something else? And not everybody will go through that transition smoothly. Some people will struggle. And that's always been true for any kind of massive socioeconomic shifts, right? Kind of the positive person in me thinks, okay, we will have a rough patch, especially some people will be affected more than others. But as a society, we'll find a way to move forward. And I think your farming example is actually a good example of that. Just because machines have replaced the need for 90% of us to be farmers doesn't mean our society suddenly crumbled and nobody had jobs, right? We found a way to adapt. I think we're more adaptable than we sometimes believe we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's very well stated. I think it's the main thing here, I think, is maybe the speed of it.
Yeah.
Like, how fast can we adapt because AI is moving so fast? And it's so cliche already to say AI is moving so fast. It's obvious. But I think also in terms of like somebody could push back and say, what about all the people that have already lost their jobs? And I think that actually there's a little bit of how can I state this? I think there's a little bit of it's hard to identify why they're actually losing their jobs because
Mm,
nobody knows what's actually going on in these companies.
mm,
A lot of these companies overhired in the first place, and we saw this during COVID. So they overhired, and now maybe a lot of them are using AI as an excuse to fire people.
yeah.
So I
Instead of
think
saying
that's
it how it is, it's like, oh, we're just optimizing towards AI or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Instead of taking accountability and saying we made a mistake, we hired
mm,
too many people, and
mm,
now this.
mm,
I'm not saying that people aren't being replaced by AI in certain
mm.
jobs. They are, and they probably will continue to be. But
Sure.
how are we going to adapt as a society is really the main thing here. I will say I see a lot of chats. We'll get into those as well, and we'll answer as many questions as well. Anything else to add on this, Daniel?
No, I think we touched upon a lot of it, to be honest. I think it's also like the important message is that AI doomers, like the really classic ones, they are a small percentage. But in many of those categories that you listed, there is actually a seed of logic there that we need to focus on. I don't think it's a controversial statement to tell people that, yeah, we probably want to make sure that AI doesn't end up advancing fraud and deepfakes and getting in the hands of the wrong people who can abuse it. I don't think anyone's going to be like, no, actually, let's let them, right? So I think all of us can agree that there is a certain degree of regulation and prudence that is reasonable to have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. I'll just add on to that real quickly. I think most of this comes down to the human intention behind AI in the first place. So in terms of bad actors getting their hands on it or the economic issue that we spoke about, I think it comes down to right now we're still in control. So, but I think there are certain types of doomers that I mentioned that what they're predicting will actually says human intention doesn't matter anymore at a
Mm,
certain point in terms of like misalignment and like the power and control type of advocates, which
mm.
basically say at a certain point, we won't be able to turn it off. At a certain point, it's going to be so goal oriented and so alien to the initial product of ChatGPT 2022 that we lost control and the human intention behind it is gone. And so I get that as well. So I think it's important what you basically just mentioned. There's a logic behind all of these different types of doomers and what they actually see for the future. But again, nobody has a crystal ball. So I think that's why I think the economic side of it is so important because I think it's irresponsible and you're doing society a disservice to tell people that they're not gonna their job is not gonna be required. So yeah, I think let's go through a few chats here. What do you say, Daniel?
Sure.
All right, cool. Uh, let's see. JC says it's been trained on psyops and politics and history and all the psychology from the
Mm.
past 200 years. Yeah, it's been trained on a whole lot. Just mention on that real quick. I think at a certain point, once AI trained on the whole internet, people were like, "Okay, it's over, it's done." But that's not true anymore because there's like basically synthetic training now, based on how much that has expanded since then. So it's not just the past 200 years; it's also training on everything that it's generated in the past four
Yeah, I
years.
think you're referring to the concerns of people at some point saying that we'll run out of fresh or unused data to train AI, and then they talked about model collapse and all of that when you don't
Yeah,
have enough.
yeah,
I think there are at least emerging solutions to that. Like you said, synthetic data is part of it.
yeah,
And then ongoing chats that people are having with these chatbots, unless you opt out, they're also used as a source of fresh training data. But if we just park on that for a second, I think it's important to say that you get sometimes these viral articles where ChatGPT says these things. It embodies a character and says, yes, actually, if I had to end humanity, this is what I would do. And it goes viral because, oh my God, the AI is getting conscious. I'm like, yeah, but you have to also remember that they are basically role playing, right? They are embodying this thing that we wrote about. We wrote about these tropes of AI taking over an evil Skynet slaving humanity. And when we tell them, like, now tell me if you were this kind of Skynet, what would you do? They're like, I'm just going to recite the plot of Terminator, but in my own words, right? Or whatever. So it's also take those with a grain of salt because they're not, depending on who you ask, but they're not necessarily having a world model. They're just mimicking back the stuff that we already wrote about and
yeah,
our fears and our concerns.
yeah. We probably when we started training AI, we probably should have trained it on everything except for the Terminator movies.
Yeah. Don't let him know.
Don't even put that idea in its head. Let's
There's
see.
always the
Ready?
Matrix.
Yeah, that's a great movie. Ready for English says HR is using AI with video interviews and assessing us before having human
Yeah.
contact. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think maybe we've spoken about HR and AI
Yeah,
taking
we
over.
talked about, I think, like mass CV filtering and CV sending, and it's just like from both sides, right? A candidate can send like the same hyper-tailored CV to like 200 companies at the click of a button, but the companies are also filtering with AI. So it's just
Yeah,
that's like a crappy result of AI in my
yeah,
world.
yeah. We'll have to change HR to AIR, AI resources.
Just throw AI into everything. And
Yeah. Let's see. Lawrence says, isn't the more productive question to explore? Let's assume there's some non-trivial P that AI will do bad things. What can we do about it?
yes, like a P doom, there is a certain chance that there will be, like, let's say, assume the AI doomers are at least 0.0 something percent right, and there is a risk. I think
Yeah.
it's classic to ask, like, what is your P doom? Where do you believe? Are you
Uh,
positive or negative about the AI?
uh,
And I think that's what I already mentioned at the end of the chat, right? I don't think it's controversial to say that, of course, this is not something that should be just the Wild West. We should have some regulation. We should have some measured approaches to it. And hopefully the people who are working on it and who have the finger on the button, at least to some extent, have these concerns. So
yeah.
absolutely.
I think that's a good point. Okay, let's see. I'm ready for English again. Professionals need to probe AI for it to dig deeper and learn to supersede the existing bias knowledge in its
Mm.
database. That sounds like a tough task. Let's see. Let's keep going down. Daniel Nest posted the McKinsey.
Don't look at anything he posts.
No,
So that guy's
I'm
not to
actually
be
interested
trusted.
to I'm really interested to know who they surveyed for that though, and like how many people.
Oh, yeah, quite open. It's like, it's employees specifically in the US. So obviously it's not a full cross-cut of the entire population of the world. It is a US population and specifically employees in different segments. So
Employees in different like AI related
no,
companies
I think
or
just
general?
different white collar and like workers. Yeah, I
Okay,
think so.
okay. AI is a tool based on flawed data. I don't know if I fully agree with that.
Mm,
That's a general statement. JC says they can replicate into gaming PCs disguised as game cell phones, as we've seen with the crypto scams, etc., solar batteries, and anything else connected to the internet. Yeah. Yeah, there was like a recent study I spoke with Sam Illingworth that it was in a controlled environment, but they basically ran an experiment where they tried to have like agents replicate in a controlled environment and it worked. So yeah, it's true. Like self-replication in a controlled environment in a specific lab experiment did happen.
mm,
If it's happening outside of that, who knows?
mm.
Definitely a possibility. Let's see. Martin White says we will see rampant regulation when AI starts doing politics. By
Mm.
doing politics, you mean like AI running for president? Let's see. Ready for English? It's humans who are handing jobs over to AI, not the other way around.
Yeah.
In a way, that's true. Let's see. And then on ChatGPT, once I discuss an academic subject, it ignores my preferences and reverts to the default uniform. That's a hard word. Uniformitarian, conservative, and limiting views.
Mm.
I don't know. That's a tough one. What do you think, Daniel?
No, I think it's also natural for AI to do that because again, by default, unless you prompt your way into some niche corner of it, it will be the most generic mainstream response, right? It is the ultimate like bell curve like aggregator, right? It's always going to be at that middle point by default because it's just in the end it's just predicting the most likely token again, right? So it will default to the lowest common denominator, like in all things, unless you proactively work with it. So I don't think that's a wrong observation. Well, that's probably how most of us observe it as well. I don't know if that's also how, because I know well, you work a lot with using AI for thinking and working through your ideas. And I guess you've probably met that as well, that you need to nudge it a little bit to be like, hey, let's get something novel here instead of the generic tropes that you default to, I assume.
Yeah. 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 We actually got to, I'm going to be putting out that video today, Daniel, of how I'm surrendering my cognitive function. The thumbnail, did you see the thumbnail that I made? It's actually pretty cool.
No, I
Uh,
haven't seen it. The last one I
okay.
saw was just our the
Yeah.
screenshot
The
from the
generic one.
podcast.
I basically just that's a cool thumbnail where it's like AI is making us stupid.
That's gonna be great to see.
Yeah. So yeah, a couple more chats here. Des, how's it going, Des? He says I was trying to return a T-shirt the other day. The company had automated their responses via email. Obviously,
Mm.
using AI, the conversation just got more and more comical. It's a perfect case study on how to display brand loyalty by automating customer
Oh,
service.
man.
I so agree with you, dude.
Remember, what was it, 3 years ago when I believe like an AI chatbot told this customer that they can have, like, I don't remember, a car, I think, for $1 or something, and the company basically had to almost honor it because they're like, "It's representing the company." Like,
Yeah,
just yeah, don't do that maybe without the right guardrails and without the right policies.
yeah, that can be annoying because it's like I can only sometimes I have to deal with certain phone calls, whether it's with a health insurance company or whatever, and I'm speaking to an operator for like 15 minutes before I finally get to a human. It's annoying. I just want to talk to a real person, and don't ask me to take a survey either. I'm not going to take your survey after the call is
But
done.
what if it's an AI survey?
Definitely not. So yeah, I guess we could wrap it up, put a bow on it here. Anything else to add, Daniel?
No, actually, it's something we skipped over coming from, I think it's Dr. Linda Mary Noble. She's
Oh,
been
did we?
writing AI like fire can cook and burn. And I think it's actually a good framing. It's in the end of the day, it is a tool and we'll have bad people using it for ill intention purposes. And then there is also something positive to be salvaged here as well. So it really depends on which direction we channel it as a society and what frameworks and laws we put around it.
Yeah,
I think that's also the view that I have in my mind. That's why I think I'm optimistic because we have managed to overcome these kind of friction points and inflection points and challenges before. So,
yeah. That's
yeah,
actually very. It's actually really good. It's almost poetic
yeah.
because it's almost let them cook, but don't burn it.
Let
It's
them
like
cook the right stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess to just wrap it up, I will say my main issue is again the economic side of it and people acting like I have my crystal ball. I'm going to look into my crystal ball and all the jobs are going to be gone. And as I can try to be comical about it, but it's honestly, it's dangerous. And I think uh, if I was going through college right now, I would be very concerned personally. So yeah, I guess we could wrap it up there, Daniel. Unless anything else on your end.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. But again, I think the reminder here is that the majority of us are probably not the let them cook and go crazy or the AI doomer kind. We are most of us lie in that middle of the McKinsey study,
Yeah,
and we all probably have generally shared views on this and
right.
ambitions for where we should end up as a society. So I don't think it's as gloomy as it may sound when you focus on the doom side of things.
I agree 100%. And I think that's why when you see things in the media, whatever, honestly, in any topic, it's always the extreme polar opposites that get the airtime because that's what people want to see. And then that's what people think the reality is when it's probably not. Most people don't think that way. But yeah, if you want to get a bunch of views, probably just be a doomer or another and be a
Tell
zoomer.
people the world is coming to an end tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you, Daniel, for joining me in
Yeah,
this
thank you.
conversation. I really appreciate it
As
as
always.
always. And thank you for everybody in the chat.
Thanks,
And yeah,
everyone.
we'll wrap it up. Thanks, guys. Bye.
See you.